This is Bruce Prichard, and I love another wrestling podcast.
It's time for another wrestling podcast.
Are you ready to be the man? You have to be the man. Big bubble pop! If you're hooked up, holler! If you ever, if you're the man! Give me a hell yeah! What the rock is cooking? The best there is, the best there was, and the best there ever will be. Yeah! Yes! Woo! Yes! Woo! What? Yes! Woo, woo, woo! Raw is Jericho! What's it gonna do when Hulkamania destroys you? What's up with that? For the benefit of those with flash photography, would you please shut the hell up? If you're not down with that, we got 2 words for ya! Oh, yes! Ooh, yeah! That was what was best for business. We, the people! What a rush! I'm the best in the world. The kid to dig that sucker! And that's the bottom line, because Stone Cold said so. Have a nice day! And the champ is here!
With your hosts, Steve Credo and Jonathan Benjamin.
All right, welcome everybody to another wrestling podcast. I'm Jonathan Benjamin.
And I'm Steve Credo.
And this is episode number 33. We have been pretty busy lately, Steve.
And how busy were we?
We were so busy. No, but in all seriousness, we are just hot off the heels of Northeast Wrestling's first annual Hammerlock Awards. I know we had a great time there. We got to present 2 awards, Steve. Did you ever in your wildest dreams think that we'd be doing that?
I did not think we'd ever present awards at an award show for wrestling. That's pretty big. Way to start off the new year with a big event like that.
Yeah, not to mention that I don't have a bucket list per se, but if I did, having Howard Finkel announce our names would probably be at least top 5 on my bucket list.
That's right, man. I mean, I think you don't know you made it until you hear Howard Finkel announce you in a room full of wrestlers and wrestling people and personalities and stuff. So that was pretty good. I got some goosebumps on that. Howard Finkel saying our names. What better can we do?
Yeah, we met a lot of great people out there, some old friends, some new friends. So if you are listening to us right now and you haven't heard from us before, or we met you then thank you for listening.
Yeah, guys, thanks for listening. And Jonathan, we just put up on our YouTube, we put an exclusive video of a red carpet video before the awards. We got to talk to some of the guys out there, give them the thoughts on what they thought they were going to expect at the awards show. We got Velvet Sky, the hardcore icon Ron Zombie. We got actually the tag team champions for Northeast Wrestling, Ron Zombie and Bull Dread we talked to. Brian Anthony, Jimmy Preston, Big Jim Anderson, all those guys, a bunch of people we talked to on the red carpet. We're also going to talk to some of the winners of the award, the Hammerlock, so stay tuned for that on our YouTube page. But yeah, check it out, guys. We just posted a video today, and yeah, you'll see some stuff that was happening.
I just have a quick question. We have a YouTube page?
We do have a YouTube page. We have a Facebook page. We have a Twitter page. We even have an Instagram. But Jonathan, instead of reading over 10,000 links of social media, just send them to the place that is the mothership of Another Wrestling Podcast. And hey, it's anotherwrestlingpodcast.com, people. We're even on ProWrestlingTees.com. Did you know that? Did you know you could go out there right now and buy a T-shirt that says Another Wrestling Podcast, Jonathan?
I did know that, and it made for great Christmas presents this year. Lots of my friends and family got them, and they were wondering to themselves, what is Another Wrestling Podcast? And luckily for them, the name and the website were on there so they could find out pretty easily. So a lot of great things that have been coming up for us, and 2014 was such a great year. I don't know how we can top it, but we're damn sure going to try.
I don't think we even need to try because I think it just comes naturally to us, topping the past show with the present show, and so on and so forth. I mean, 2015 is going to be, I think, the year of AWP.
Yeah, and you know what? Today we're really kind of going with that. We're going with a bang today. We get to talk to none other than, you may know him as Brother Love or Bruce Prichard, but it's the same guy. So he's going to be on today to kind of talk about what he's been up to lately, what he's done in the past, and we hope we can find out a little more info about a certain signing that he has coming up on Royal Rumble Day in Philadelphia.
I love you. That's a horrible impression, but that's kind of what he did. Pretty much told people that he loves them.
I love you too.
It's the love show, I guess we can call it. Yeah.
It was what it was.
It is what it is. It was
Yeah,
what
no,
it was.
it was a good try. You gave it the college try.
That's it. But yeah, I mean, what another great guest we have this week. But he has a big appearance coming up on January 25th down in Philadelphia. He's going to have, I'm calling it the Great Debate. I don't even know if it has a name, but it's Bruce Prichard, Eric Bischoff, and Chris Jericho having a little, debate about the Monday Night Wars and pretty much, how both sides took it. So hey, we're going to talk to him before he even shows up there. So stay tuned, guys. We're going to have Bruce Prichard in the studio coming up. So Jonathan, we've talked with wrestlers. We talked about wrestlers. We've talked about, certain situations. We talked about the Attitude Era. We talked about, what did we talk about?
Well, I'll tell you, if you go back and listen to some of our other shows, you would know what we've talked about.
You think I haven't been here for the past 6 months, maybe?
Yeah, no. No, we've talked pretty much about everything that you can talk about. Obviously, there's a never-ending supply of things. Is there what do you want to talk about today? I'm going to say it's dealer's choice.
Jonathan, the one thing we really haven't talked about are talk shows. I mean, what better place to talk about a talk show than on I guess you can kind of call this a talk show, but not as what we want to talk about. I mean, some of the most famous talk show segments ever, from Piper's Pit, The Peep Show, The Brother Love Show, Hello, The Snake Pit. There's tons of more we're going to be talking about, but do you remember these? I mean, these are pretty much a staple in pro wrestling. I mean, talk shows on a wrestling show are pretty much, a thing. That's pretty much, it's a thing that keeps the world of wrestling going. Like having interview segments of famous guys who had their own segments. I guess I don't really know how to put this all together, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, no, I think that this has been, as long as there's been wrestling, the interview has been a way to kind of get to know another wrestler on a different level, maybe introduce another wrestler. There's been makeups, there's been breakups. It's all happened on these interview segments, and I know in my head right now I've got at least top five moments for things like this. So it'll be interesting to talk to you and see which ones meant the most to you. I think what I'm going to do right away is I'm going to talk about one, and I don't think it's going to be one that you're gonna talk about, but it's fine. The Snake Pit. Now, Jake Roberts had this, and I remember it being kind of creepy. It looked like a cave, and there was like a cauldron, and there was kind of smoke rising out of this thing. You're familiar with the Snake Pit, correct?
I am familiar with the Snake Pit, Jonathan. Glad you asked.
Yeah, so the Snake Pit for me was probably one of my favorites just because it had Jake Roberts on it, and as a kid growing up, I absolutely loved Jake Roberts. So I think that the one that's most memorable to me, and I didn't know it at the time, but now that I'm older and I've learned a little bit more about it, is definitely one that stands out to me. And it was when Jake Roberts had Honky Tonk Man and Jimmy Hart on the Snake Pit. Are you familiar with this?
I am familiar with it, yes.
So, for whatever reason, Jake and Honky were mouthing each other back and forth.
Did you just say honky?
Oh, I said honky.
Is that PG?
It's PG. It's fine.
Okay.
It's for all of our honkies that are out there listening. So they were kind of fighting. They got into it, and you see Honky Tonk storm off the set, and he comes around from behind. He ends up cracking Jake Roberts in the head with a guitar. Jake hits like the cauldron, falls down like a sack of potatoes. Now, what about that isn't, there's nothing about that I guess really seems that odd, except for the fact that you look at the guitar shot, and years later you would find out that it wasn't a gimmicked guitar. And what we mean by that is it wasn't a balsa wood guitar that would just explode on impact like most of the guitars do in wrestling. So that was an actual fiberglass guitar that no one had rigged prior to the snake pit. So in a lot of videos that Jake has said, he attributes a lot of his drug use to that moment because he got hit so hard with that guitar, he slipped a couple discs in his back and started working altered state because he was in so much pain.
Wow.
So, maybe it's not the most memorable interview segment, but it's definitely something that happened on an interview segment that I was just... It's such a memorable thing.
Yeah, and you bring up a good point, like memorable things that have happened on these so-called segments. You know what I mean? They're interviews within the show. I mean, you can even go back to Piper's Pit. You said that was the most famous. I think this next moment was probably one of the most famous. Is when Piper cracked Jimmy Snuka over the head with a coconut. That was probably one of the biggest things to ever happen on a talk show. And all these talk shows usually end up with somebody fighting eventually, but you know what I mean? It's just amazing how we've come through the years to where, these talk shows have been a staple. I keep saying that, and that's why I want to reinforce it because, when you look at pro wrestling, you always look at these famous talk shows, the Brother Love Show, Piper's Pit, so many things have happened on each show where they've had weddings on them. I believe, I could be wrong, but I mean the weddings, the barber shop, the breakup of the Rockers. That's another big moment. Every time I think of another person's show, I think of that one moment that probably cemented that show's legacy in its history. You know what I mean? Let's talk about those two. What are your thoughts on Piper's Pit with the coconut, and maybe talk a little bit about the barbershop and our friend Marty Jannetty going through the barbershop window.
No, I definitely think that those are two of the most iconic talk show things, and I think we're seeing like a reoccurring theme. To be a memorable talk show, someone has to get like busted open with a coconut. They have to get hit over the head with anything. Highlight reel with Jericho. He sent Shawn Michaels through the TV, the Jeritron 5000. But the barbershop and Piper's Pit were two of the most iconic, and for different reasons. Piper was an amazing talker, and he's one of the best in the business. And he would go on there and pretty much just say whatever he wanted. And most of what I remember about Piper's Pit are the things that he would say on there. And he said certain things that back then were, they weren't PC back then, but
controversial in a way.
Yeah, they're definitely not PC now. The whole thing with Jimmy Snuka, he was basically making fun of Samoan people and making fun of the women and said that they're shaped like a pineapple, and it got Jimmy going, and then he cracked him over the head with a coconut. So I think that moment, but one of my favorite things that he's ever said is you do not throw rocks at a man who has a machine gun. And that doesn't really even make sense. But he said it with such conviction, and it was Rowdy Piper, and he said, once again, when RP talks, brother, people listen. So I think that was just a way to not only get people over that were guests on his show, but just to cement that Rowdy Piper was just untouchable when he was on Piper's Pit.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, some of these shows out there, I mean, even you even have like the Peep Show, Ms. TV, the highlight reel. There's so many like new ones out there. I'm trying to think off the top of my head, but I mean, there's so many. These shows have just been throughout the years, and I love them when they bring them back. Like when they bring, as you would say, RP, the Piper's Pit back later on in life after Mr. Piper has been aged a few. Having him do that is vintage talk show stuff. I don't know how to put it, but it's great to see the old ones back. But do you remember some of the ones that probably just didn't really hit the note with you? Some of them I can think of is like Matt Stryker's Classroom, the Abraham Washington Show. Some of these, they were talk shows kind of, but they didn't really have the same effect as some of the bigger ones like the Barbershop, Piper's Pit, the Brother Love Show, all that stuff back in the day. Any ones that you just didn't really like, or you think just didn't really have that flair of some of these bigger ones?
Yeah, I would definitely say that in recent years, the Carlito's Cabana, it was good. They were trying to use him to get over, and every now and then there was a good segment here or there, but that one really didn't do a lot for me. And also, maybe just because I didn't see a lot of this one whenever I was growing up, but I've seen it now, throughout the years. But the Flower Shop with Adrian Adonis, I know that there was a iconic moment on there when, once again, Roddy Piper went crazy and just destroyed the set. But other than that, I don't remember a lot about the Flower Shop. I think it, in theory, was good, and Adrian Adonis had so much heat as adorable Adrian Adonis anything that they did with him was going to be ridiculous. But obviously, I agree with you. Matt Stryker's Classroom was good in the sense that he could it was mainly, I guess, for Matt Stryker putting himself over or getting heat on him. So no. I don't necessarily think that was as successful as some of the other ones.
Yeah, like I said, out of a lot of these old shows, I always have those little vivid memories of even like Piper taking fire extinguishers and putting them in people's faces. And I don't care who you are, I'd totally be pissed off if I was the guy in return and I didn't expect it, and I just got a fire extinguisher in my face, whether it's fake or not. It's still got to piss you off.
Oh, absolutely. There's just, and like we said, I think that the whole idea behind it was to try to get people invested in not only the person that was hosting the show, but also the people that were on the show. And I'll tell you right now, I'm a huge Shawn Michaels fan. I always have been. When he was on the Barbershop and the Rockers broke up, it was the only thing I can liken it to is, I guess, Team Jacob and Team Edward on Twilight. Before there was a Twilight, you had to pick Team Jannetty or Team HBK. And even though I've always been on Team HBK, whenever I saw him put Jannetty through the Barbershop window, it was a part of me died that day. And that may be a little dramatic, but it's the absolute truth. And, then there's this whole big buildup about, is Jannetty going to come back? And all this stuff was going on. But they could have never done that with such flair unless it was done on one of those segments. If it was just done in the ring, I don't think people would have cared about it as much. But the graphic that you see all the time is when, he throws him right through the window, or he super kicks him, then throws him through the window, and Jannetty's bleeding. It was just so powerful.
Hell, there's even a T-shirt store right now called the Barbershop Window where you could buy wrestling T-shirts. What a great name! It's stuck around so much. People named their own damn store after the show.
Yeah, I think that you've got in this day and age, they don't really do this a lot. You just had the Cutting Edge Peep Show. It was the first one ever. Where you had Edge and Christian doing a interview type segment, but the iconic ones like Piper's Pit, like the highlight reel, those always make a comeback around WrestleMania season or whenever they're trying to do something to once again get a talent over. So who did they have on Piper's Pit the last time they did? They had Rusev on there. So I think there's some lasting effects of just being associated with that, and it's a pretty cool thing. Just like we said, we had our names introduced by Fink. You can say I was one of maybe 50 wrestlers that was on a Piper's Pit,
Yeah, exactly. And that's what's great about this. I know we're talking about some of our favorites or some of the most memorable talk shows out there. If you guys are listening to us right now, feel free to tweet us on Twitter at a wrestling pod. Let us know your thoughts. What's your favorite talk show now, past or present, whatever? Or Facebook us, whatever you guys want to do. You know we're out there. Just send us a message and let us know what you guys, when we say wrestling talk show, what's one that comes to your mind, or maybe any favorite moments on it. Our guest coming up, the Brother Love Show, had some memorable moments on it because he managed The Undertaker, but then he decided he didn't have enough time for it, so he introduced Paul Bearer on his show, and that's when Paul Bearer and The Undertaker became one, I guess, if you will. So that's another memorable moment to where I don't know how long he managed him. It was probably a day. A few people managed The Undertaker. It was like DiBiase he came in with, and then he was with Brother Love for, I don't know, a few weeks, who knows. But then, then that's when Paul Bearer came on his show, and that's when the two were paired together. So, there's little things like that you kids out there listening may or may not know. So, check it out on the WWE Network. I'm sure it's up there, right?
Yeah.
Or YouTube. I mean, hey, it's 2015, so.
Yeah, I mean, you'll find it. Just type it in somewhere, and you'll find it.
Definitely, and I mean that's the thing. I mean, we'll have to ask Bruce in a little bit about the Brother Love Show, see what he has to say. But hey guys, just let us know what you think about these talk shows. And I think we see Bruce Prichard walking in right now. Let's bring him in. Our guest today, he spent time in front of and behind the camera helping create some of professional wrestling's greatest moments. Please welcome our guest, none other than Bruce Prichard. Bruce, thank you.
Hey, thank you guys for having me on, man. Look forward to it.
No problem. So tell us a little bit about, let's get right into it, because we have a few things to tell the fans about. You and Eric Bischoff are going to be having an autograph signing on the 24th in Queens, New York at the Wrestling Universe.
On the 25th? No, we're going to be 25th in Philadelphia.
Oh, Philadelphia. Yeah, we had that next. We thought we were doing a signing, too, but that's the big deal, right?
Wait a minute.
Debate.
Hey, you know what? We are doing a signing, so thank you for correcting me, correcting you.
That's before the big debate.
I was all ready to cut you off, man, and you guys saved the day. Thank you.
No problem. Yeah, well, just a little plug for the signing. But, yeah, more importantly, the great debate we're having between you and Eric Bischoff, moderated by Chris Jericho. Tell us a little bit about that and what maybe the fans can expect.
Well, this is something that I don't think has ever been done before. And the way this all came about was it's simply whenever Eric Bischoff and I get together and we sit down, we have a couple of adult beverages, and people start talking about, hey, you remember back in the day, you remember back in the wars when we did this and you did that, and everybody, always has their own opinion and as to what happened and how it happened, if you will. And Eric and I were there. We were on different sides. So he'll answer one way, and I'll usually answer completely the opposite. Well, no, that's not the way it happened, because it happened differently from my point of view. Mm-hmm. And it's not necessarily that either one's right or either one's wrong. It's just we saw everything going on from two completely diverse viewpoints. Mm-hmm. And it would, we would have some healthy arguments, and it became informative, actually, for one another. It was got to the point like, okay, why did you do this then? Or, okay, well, when we did this and you did that, what was your thought process behind that? Then we started to think, wouldn't it be neat if people could ask us questions about those times to see what was the rationale behind some of the things that the WWF at the time did, and what was the rationale behind WCW and what Eric did at the time. Damn, sounds pretty interesting. And we threw the idea out there, and seems to be some interest in it. So we're gonna give it a shot there in Philadelphia, and see what comes out. I don't really know what to expect, but I'm looking forward to it.
All right.
Now, we know, obviously, it's going to be you and Eric talking. Is there anything that you'd like to get out right now to Eric? So if he's listening, he can kind of get prepared. Is there anything that you really want to find out from him?
Well, the unique thing about this is, and we hope to do more of these. Okay? This is our first one in Philadelphia on the 25th, and we hope to do more across the country. I'm not looking so much at it as to what I'm want to get out of it. I'm looking at it as what the audience wants to get out of it, because you had a lot of people watching both shows at the time, and there were a lot of what ifs and there were a lot of whys that never truly got answered. So it's not necessarily what either Eric's looking to get out of it or I'm looking to get out of it. Hopefully we're going to be able to answer a lot of those questions that the audience has been wondering all these years that they never got an answer to. And that's what we're looking for. And the other thing about it is we're not going to have a set agenda per se, other than kind of a debate formula with Chris Jericho being the moderator and trying to keep the boat in the water, so to speak. But we're looking for every show to be different. We're looking to kind of build off of whatever the audience interest is and kind of take it from there.
Definitely. And now, what are your thoughts too? I know you said about Chris Jericho briefly, but he just came in on this. And how do you think he's going to do as a moderator between both of you? You think we'll keep it neutral or what?
I think it's going to be great personally, because I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. Chris was on both sides of the war when both sides were doing great. So he was with WCW when WCW was overtaking the WWF. And then he was with the WWF when it was overtaking WCW. So Chris, in and of himself, has a very unique perspective. And add to that the simple fact that when we announced that we were going to do this show, Jericho called us wanting to be a part of it.
Wow.
And asking how he could help and if there's anything he could do. And when we said, yeah, man, let's put it on your show. Let's help us get it out there. And in doing so, Chris was like, God, yeah, I'm going to be in Philadelphia. I'd love to be a part of this. And I kind of took him up on that.
There you go.
And we would love to have you, man. Come on down. And he agreed to do it, which his level of enthusiasm and just sheer desire to be a part of it is what blew me away, man. I loved it. So that in and of itself was pretty neat. So he's coming prepared. He's coming loaded for bear. And we'll see what happens.
All right.
Now, it sounds like a great event. For those of you who are wondering how you can find out more about this, you can go on rfvideo.com. And I know that it's not going to be recorded. So if you are in the area, you need to be there in person, because that's the only way you're really going to find out about this event.
And again, it's all going to be with audience participation. You've got a question you want to ask, come and ask him, man. We're not going to duck anything.
All right. Now, we're going to come back to that here in a little bit. We're just going to talk to you about a few things. But now, you grew up in Texas, which was obviously like a huge hotbed for professional wrestling. What were your earliest memories of professional wrestling?
My earliest memories were of the Funk Brothers out of Amarillo, because I lived in El Paso at the time. I was born in El Paso, and saw the Amarillo television, which was the Funks, Dory and Terry Funk. So my early influence were the Funks, Ricky Romero, Harley Race, the Infernos, Jason Dykes and the Infernos, guys like that. Names that, probably a lot of you viewers are going, huh? Who? But those were the first guys that I remember. And then we moved to Houston, where Paul Bosch was the promoter, and it became Wahoo McDaniel, Johnny Valentine, Jose Lothario, and guys like that. So those are the early formative years, late 60s, early 70s.
Sure. Now, did you ever have like a plan B once you started working in the wrestling business, or do you guys ever think about that when you start working in wrestling?
What do you mean by a plan?
I mean,
hell, I didn't have a plan A. But
maybe like, hey, if I'll try this wrestling thing out. If it doesn't work, I'm definitely going to go do this later on. Maybe, I don't know.
I think if you were to ask anyone that's known me when I was a kid, I had a one-track mind. I was going to be in wrestling come hell or high water. There was nothing that was going to stop me. And I never had a plan B.
Right.
It was, I worked for it. I worked towards it, and every opportunity that I had, I exploited to the nth degree just to be able to be in the wrestling business. I loved it. As a kid, I loved it. I love it now. And it was just a true passion. So, unfortunately, in some ways, I kind of wish I had a plan B sometimes, but I don't know that I would have been able to do the things that I did if I thought I had a backup, or if I thought I'll just go on and do something else. Mm-hmm. Only having that plan A and working towards it, that drive was there to succeed no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
Now, did your brother, Tom Prichard, wrestled actually? When you both kind of got into the business, he was a little bit older than you, but did you ever wish that you were actually wrestling, or were you happy doing all the other stuff you got to do?
No, I always wanted to be a wrestler. I had, Tom, man, Tom's a stud. And Tom was natural, and I know I'm a little prejudiced here, man, but Tom was excellent. And a great, great worker, great talent. I didn't have that gift. And I would have loved to have wrestled. If you want to call mine a gift, I landed in the office. I had bad knees and landed in the office, and Paul Bosch, the promoter here in Houston, told me from the time I was like 16 years old, you want to be on this side. And that was the side that I chose. And I never got out. I loved it because by being able to be in the office and later on being able to be a part of the creative process, you get to be everybody. You don't just have, you're not just playing one character. You're not just worrying about your own thing. You get to worry about everybody and everything. Mm-hmm. And that's a lot more fun.
All right. Now, growing up, were there some guys that you idolized, watching it as a young fan?
Oh, the Funks and Briscoes, yeah. They just were. I don't know if there were any better. To watch a guy like Jack Briscoe in the ring was magic to me. Same thing with Dory. He and Dory could do more in an hour without doing anything than anybody had ever seen in my life. Nowadays, if you were to go back and watch some of those matches, some of these kids would look at it and say, well, they're not doing anything. And not understand the psychology and what was put into that particular match, and then how every single thing that they did in ring meant something. Everything they did was another chapter in the story. Mm-hmm. And it drew you in. It just, watching the Briscoes, man, watching the Funks, Johnny Valentine, unbelievable. Wally McDaniel, they beat the hell out of each other. And it was just exciting as a kid to be able to engulf, and just be a part of that. It was great.
Yep.
Now, we're going to skip forward a little bit, but you were eventually brought into the WWF at the time, WWE now. What were your initial thoughts of Vince McMahon and the WWE when you were brought up there?
Well, from where I came from in Houston and working with Bill Watts in the Mid-South, and so many guys that had come through, there was such a prejudice, if you will, towards those damn Yankees up in the Northeast and that evil Vince McMahon. That for all I knew, before I went in there, that Vince Spitfire and was this just horrible human being. And then you meet him and you're around him, and all of the things that I had heard, I kept waiting for the shoe to drop. and it never did. He was really good to me. He gave me opportunities that I'm not sure that a lot of people ever would have given a kid my age at the time. And I can't say enough good things about it. I mean, it was a great ride. It really was. It was a hell of a run.
Sure.
But he didn't live up to that negative stereotype and negative picture that had been drawn for me for so many years. And there was a part of me that was terrified to go up north because, again, all the rumors that you hear, and you got up there and was a bunch of people doing business and working together to make the best product that they possibly could.
All right, now, your persona, Brother Love, was pretty controversial at the time. Were you or WWE ever contacted by any evangelists during your run as Brother Love?
No, not any evangelist. There were quite a few people that didn't particularly care for the character, felt that it was blasphemous.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I am tongue-tied. I've been doing these all day, and they felt that I was making fun of religion. But if you go back and you really examine what Brother Love did, what he said, I never touched on religion. I didn't go there. But I went all around it, I guess. If you chose to, when people really examine deep down inside what they think of organized religion and what they think of these preachers that get on TV and they do everything but religion, but they can think of 100 different ways in 10 minutes to ask you to send money in. And I just would sit there and I would analyze these guys, and the sheer hatred that I had for them helped develop this character, and it was so easy because all you had to do was just be a phony.
Okay, now Brother Love was so hot at the time that he landed you on the January 1989 cover of WWE Magazine. Was that a surprise to you?
I think it holds the record for the least amount of magazines ever sold. A part of me was surprised, but also at the same time, it was what was happening, and the character was hot, and they didn't often put heels on the cover of the magazine, and it was to be something different. So, it was a huge honor for me. I got a hell of a kick out of it. I've got the magazine framed up on my wall here somewhere.
Now, years later, obviously, you would be immortalized with your very own action figure. Which one of those felt like a bigger accomplishment for you?
Action figure.
Awesome.
I just that just tickled me to death. I thought that was cool. It's kind of one of those things that you look at and go, hey, wow, man, I got an action figure. That's also on my wall, too. So, hey, go figure.
Now, I
thought that was cool.
Yeah.
But you know what, though? hang on. I'm going to actually backtrack here just a little bit.
Sure.
I was in Hong Kong in 1990, I guess. And seeing myself on the magazine rack in Hong Kong, in a WWF magazine, that was a kick too. That was just being able to walk down the street and go, hey, wait a minute, that's me. That was pretty cool. But okay, back to your original question. Yeah, the action figure.
Now, other than your on-screen role for the WWF, were there any other duties that you had working with them?
I did it all, soup to nuts. When I was Brother Love, I also was producing television shows and working behind the scenes, helping out in any and every which way there was. If there was something to be done, I did it, and loved doing it. It's like I said, I love every aspect of it, and to be able to be behind the scenes as well as in front of the camera, I had the best of both worlds.
Now, you spent 22 years working for the WWE, and a lot of that time you spent doing things creatively, working with creative. And sometimes you get maybe saddled with the responsibility of bad gimmicks or bad characters or whatever. But were there anything that you pitched that you really got behind that you wanted to create, either a character or a gimmick, that just never happened? Like, is there another? Is there like another clown out there somewhere, or another Man Mountain Rock that we don't know about?
God, I hope there's not another Man Mountain Rock. No, it was. You have to try things to see if they're going to work or not. Yeah, I mean, who knew on a lot of characters. And some things that you thought were going to be a huge hit, it just didn't work. Well, that's a tough one. I don't think I've ever been asked that before. Sometimes there were things that we wanted to do in portraying a character or bringing a character out that we didn't always get to realize, and sometimes things were cut short before. I'm of the old school that I like to see things develop some kind of slowly and logically, and it was frustrating sometimes when we would rush things because it wasn't hitting at that exact minute, and it's like, well, we got to do this, and we got to do this, we got to do this quick. And there were probably a few of those, but to have any particular, I can't really think of one right off the top of my head that I'd say, well, we wanted to do this, and it didn't work. There's a lot of stuff that didn't work. But I don't really know off the top of my head.
Okay.
Now, you were with the WWE during some of its most infamous moments, including the Montreal Screwjob, the Attitude Era, and the Monday Night Wars. Out of those three, do you think, is it the most important? Which one do you think is the most important in the world of pro wrestling, I would say?
The Monday Night Wars, which led into the Attitude Era. Mm-hmm. Because it changed the industry in so many ways. It put an emphasis on live television. It put an emphasis on the arena concept and really putting your best product out there live and having that unpredictable aspect of it. So without a doubt, I would say that the war, if you want to call that, was probably the turning point.
Okay, now you obviously are aware that the WWE Network just put out a series called The Monday Night War, which basically goes through the entire ratings war between WCW and WWE. How much did your job change during that time frame versus the rest of the time you were there? I know that there was, like in the early 90s, it was kind of slower than obviously what it was during that time. So was it just insane backstage? What was the feeling like back then?
Well, when we finally went live every week, the atmosphere is a lot more electric. I love live television because anything can happen, and we had a philosophy that if anything went wrong, it was supposed to go wrong. It was supposed to happen because we're live. You can't screw up live television. No matter what happens, it was supposed to happen. So that's what I loved about that time, because you just were out there. You were out there without a net. It wasn't, if somebody screwed up or something didn't work, well, we can fix it in post. There was no post. You were out there live. You deliver or you get out. And it had an effect on the talent too, because I think that they performed better when they were live and under the gun. So it's the whole atmosphere, the whole attitude, which is where the Attitude Era came from. It changed. It just became a little bit more frenetic.
Now, the Brother Love Show, which was probably one of the most memorable talk show style segments in wrestling history, other than your own segments, was there any ones that were, any of your favorite that you had on your show? Any guests or any times that were, very memorable for you?
The first time that I had Hulk Hogan on, and again, those were the glory days when there's nobody hotter than Hogan. and we were doing something just to see if there was any chemistry there. Mm-hmm. And we did it. We did a little segment in the ring at a TV, and it was. I mean, I remember just having goosebumps from head to toe because it was just so electric and magical. So Hulk was always a favorite. Jake, please, I could go 2 hours with Jake talking. Love Jake. Let's see, Hogan. There's a lot of them, but those are the kind of guys that stick out. Anybody that could battle verbally back and forth, I loved. Mm-hmm. Absolutely loved it. And when Piper, can't leave Roddy out because I stole so much from him that I loved working with him, and I loved the fact that we would talk about nothing. So we knew what we needed to do, we knew what we needed to get over, and we just went out and did it. I never knew what was coming out of his mouth. For real. I never knew what was going to come out of his mouth. And him, me. So we worked off of that, and I think he enjoyed it. I know I did, because it was just that unpredictability that he thrived on. So yeah, Piper was great too.
You also had a pretty mean Piper impersonation, if I remember correctly, too.
Yeah, he didn't like that.
Now, one of my favorite brother love moments of all time was in 2001, and I'm pretty sure you know where I'm going with this. WrestleMania 17, the gimmick battle royal. How did you get involved with that?
Boy, you got me. That's kind of one of those. I might have left the room to go to the bathroom, and I'm not kidding about this either. And came back and looked at the names on the gimmick battle royal. And, what the hell is he doing in there? and I just thought everybody was kidding at first, and before I knew it, it was here. And that was, I mean, you talk about a thrill to be in WrestleMania in your hometown. 70,000 plus people setting a record in the Astrodome. Yeah, that was a little kick in the ass. That was great. Yeah, that's one of those high points.
All right. Now, as we said earlier, you were with the WWE for a long time, but after leaving the WWE, you went to work for Dixie Carter and TNA. What did you expect when you got there, and were your expectations met, or did they fall flat?
I didn't expect anything. I didn't. When I left WWE, I didn't watch anything for almost a year, a little over a year, and I started watching back again, and I watched both products, and I didn't know a lot of the guys either. It was a young group, and I knew obviously Hogan and Bischoff and those guys, but I didn't know a lot of their homegrown talent, and it just went in with an open mind, and there's a lot of good young talent there. But it was a completely different environment than what I'd been used to. It was just it was a different business, a whole different game.
Mm-hmm. Now, you like you mentioned, you worked with some pretty infamous names, Hogan, Bischoff. You also worked with Vince Russo. Now, obviously, I don't know him personally or even at all, but he gets a lot of people's blood pumping. Did you get along with Vince, or is he somebody that you don't get along with either?
No, I always got along with Vince. I didn't have a problem with Vince. You know, he's opinionated. He's got his own ideas about the way he thinks things should be, but so am I. So, you know, we got along on that level because I let him have his opinions and he let me have my opinions. And we met somewhere in the middle. But it's everybody that you meet in this business, they're all going to be, hopefully, to come out with the best product. You don't want 10 people sitting around a table that all have the exact same ideas and the exact same way of doing things. Because then you don't need 9 of them. So when you have people with completely different viewpoints and completely different ideas, it makes people think, and it makes you defend your ideas that much more. And it makes you, by doing that, it makes you see if they make sense or not. Because now you got to convince somebody. If you can convince them and win them over, then maybe you're going to be able to convince an audience and get an audience interested in what you want to portray. Mm-hmm. But, Vince, smart guy, and, he does his thing. I think that Vince enjoys that polarity that he has and wants to play that up as being the swerve king and all that. I was usually the guy that wanted to stay in the background, and I didn't want anybody to come and know who I was, so to speak. And I know that sounds crazy coming from me and with the characters I portray, but the reality was I could literally walk into an arena back in the day without my Brother Love makeup on, and no one knew who I was. I could perform, walk out of that same arena, and no one knew who I was. Mm-hmm. So I like the anonymity of that character. But back to Russo, he was a guy that had different ideas that got Vince McMahon's ear, and was able to parlay that into what it was, and into some really good television at the time.
Sure. Now, we mentioned the Monday Night Wars earlier. We just talked about Vince Russo also. Now, Vince Russo has taken more than his fair share of credit over the years for creating stuff that happened in the Attitude Era. And, going back to your great debate coming up on January 25th with Eric Bischoff and Chris Jericho, have you ever, spoken to Vince about, some of the stuff that's happened in the Attitude Era? The stuff going on backstage, he's, like I said, he's taken a lot of credit for a lot of stuff that's happened. Would you agree with a lot of the things that happened were his ideas, or are they pretty much, a collection of sorts?
The bottom line is, and everybody that I've talked to lately, they've all had the same question. It's a very simple fact. There's one guy in the WWE who makes the decision, who's going to make the final decisions. And everything goes through him. So, and his last name is McMahon.
The other Vince, yeah.
So, yeah. So whatever ideas, it can go from George Scott in the early '80s to Pat Patterson to me and Pat to Vince Russo to Brian Gewirtz to Michael Hayes to everybody else. Okay, we all had great ideas. We all had some pretty bad ideas too. But Vince McMahon would take those ideas, and filter them, and he's the one that made the decision what was going to be on and how it was going to be portrayed and how it was going to be presented. So again, I guess if you're in that role and you want to take credit, you can to an extent, but the fact of the matter is that none of it would have gotten on the air had Vince McMahon not been behind it, supported it, and tweaked it. That's what he does. That's what he does to this day. So it's, it's pretty much that simple.
Now, obviously, you're known for WWE and your stay in TNA. Would you be willing to go back to work for any of them or work for a different wrestling company today?
Sure.
Is there now with the advent of the internet and all this stuff, there's a lot of more gritty company. There's Lucha Underground. There's a lot of independent promotions that are actually starting to get TV time and stuff. Ring of Honor to name one. Is there one that you've had your eye on before that you thought you'd like to try your hand at, or?
Well, currently I'm working with the Reality Wrestling here in Houston, which is Booker T's organization. Mm-hmm. And he's got a school here in town. He's got just a whole roster of great kids that are going through his school. But he just recorded his 50th television show on Saturday night. And I've been working with him, and I've been working with him with the kids at school and at TV and everything. And I've never seen a better, from bottom to top, group, independent group, if you will, than what he's got. And he's got some very promising talent there. And it's just so, for me, as I left Saturday night, I just thanked him for allowing me to be a part of it, because it's young talent that want to be in the business, that want to learn, that come in without a preconceived idea of what they think it should be, and get to work with them and just see what happens on the other side. I'm having a blast. But it's some good, hungry young talent. He's got some guys, Pro Wrestling Society, I believe that's what it's called, up in Jersey. A couple guys that have come down from there, Mario Bacara and Fala, that are unbelievable talents. They're going to be, you give them a few years, and they're going to be in the show. Booker just introduced 2 new talents on Saturday night. Again, he's got a couple kids out there that are 19, 20 years old. A couple years, they're going to be in the show. So that's exciting to me. I just love that aspect of the business, and seeing these guys when they're first coming up, and is Grill Monsoon, you say they don't know shit from Shinola, and watch them develop as stars.
All right, now on Twitter, we've seen that you've teased that there may be a book in the works. Is there anything maybe you could tell us about this or the upcoming project, maybe?
Man, I had been writing a book for a while, and I get to these points where I just stop writing, and I go back and I read, and then I start tweaking, and I have to learn to leave it alone, I guess, because I end up tweaking more, and I feel like I just get further and further behind. But the concept behind it, the idea behind it, is simply to tell stories, and it's a feel-good book. It's not a tell-all. It's not a, I was born 1963. It's not that. It's little stories like talking about Paul Bosch finding religion, and how these little episodes and stories. Okay, give you an example. It's Paul Bosch found religion, was born again Christian, and invited me to hear his testimony. I'm going to give you the Reader's Digest version. And we go out to this Baptist church in Sugar Land, Texas, and Paul gives his testimony, and it's emotional. He's talking about everything that he was doing in World War II and ducking bullets and this, that, and the other thing. And at the end of the deal, they ask everybody to come down, and the preacher gets up, the minister of the church gets up, and he tells a story about how he was on a hunting trip with 6 other ministers, and they were up in the mountains, and they were on this road, and they came upon a sheep that had stepped in a hole and broken its ankle. And the rest of the flock left the sheep on the side of the road to die because he couldn't continue. He couldn't roam with the flock. He was unable to. He had a broken ankle. But the Lord Jesus Christ, he will not leave you on the side of the road with a broken ankle. He will pick you up and keep you with his flock no matter what. And so they're telling this story and everything. And the next day, Paul comes into the office, and he sits down across from my desk and at the end of the day and asks me, he says, "So, what'd you think of the presentation last night?" I said, "Well, it was interesting." So, "Well, did you learn anything?" I said, "Well, I have a question." And he gets really excited, and he's like, because he thinks, okay, Bruce is kind of getting into this. This is good. He's got a question about what went on. Maybe I can help him and bring him to the other side. And I said, "Well, when that minister was telling the story about, deer hunting and the sheep on the side of the road and broken ankle and the flock and all that?" Yes. So, the question is, where was God? Why wasn't he looking out after that poor little sheep on the side of the road and those deer that these guys were pointing guns at? And he just gave me this disgusted look and got up and walked out. So, and it's just kind of a collection of different, things that have, anecdotes, if you will, that have happened to me throughout the many years in this business. It was different. You meet a lot of different personalities, and so just kind of a collection of short stories like that.
All right. Well, we hope that if you get this going, and you can definitely come back on the show and let us know a little more about it.
Lightning round.
What is your favorite bad gimmick of all time?
Bastion Booger.
Do you have a favorite mini Vince McMahon story that nobody probably knows about, or I don't know?
A mini Vince McMahon story?
Not like a miniature Vince McMahon, but a short Vince McMahon story.
Wow, I've got lots of those. Wow.
Or any funny moment?
Well,
maybe?
okay, real quick.
Okay.
The first time Vince fired me, there was we were in Mid-South Wrestling, and Ernie Ladd was the booker, and Ernie Ladd was explaining to Bill Watts why Vince was so successful. He's like, Bill, you look at him, and he's got Nikolai Volkov, he's got the Iron Sheik. They're real, Bill. That's what Vince McMahon's doing. The man is a genius. Vince McMahon is a genius. He knows what he's doing. So I'm telling Vince this story. That, and so like something would happen, and Vince McMahon is a genius. And so he calls me into the office to let me go the first time, and he's sitting there with the other guy across the way, and he says, Bruce, oh, I'm sorry, I left out the most important part. And he goes, Vince McMahon is a genius. He fired my ass. That man is a genius. And I always laugh because Ernie was talking about the man's genius and he fired his ass. So Vince brings me. See how I screwed that up? You guys rushed.
What do you think you will be remembered most for in the world of wrestling?
Probably Brother Love.
Okay.
I think it was the most out there and most visible.
Who do you think's the best talker in wrestling today?
Today?
Yeah, today. Anybody come to mind?
Because I love Bray Wyatt. Heyman is excellent. Bray Wyatt, I just am mesmerized. I think he's tremendous. Hell of a future.
Okay, and it can be today, it can be of all time, whatever. Who is your favorite wrestler?
My favorite is probably The Undertaker.
Okay.
Just because I love the gimmick, love the work.
Lightning round.
And now the big news today, thoughts on the Macho Man finally getting inducted into the Hall of Fame?
About time. It is about time. Yeah. Yeah, he's deservedly so. I'm glad he's finally going in.
Now,
wish they'd done it before, he passed.
Absolutely. Now, other than coming to see you Royal Rumble weekend in Queens for the signing and at Philadelphia for the debate, where can fans keep up with you today? Do you have? I know you're on Twitter, right?
Mainly my Twitter and my Facebook,
okay.
But I don't do a whole lot on Facebook just because I just kind of like less than however many words I'm allowed on Facebook. So I can get in and get out. I mean, on Twitter. So I mean, Twitter's the way to go. Bruce Prichard at Twitter. Or whatever the hell. You know how to get there.
Yes, we got it.
I'm an old fart. I just have it.
Well, Bruce, we really appreciate your time and for joining us today. We thank you.
Guys, thank you very much, man. I had fun and greatly appreciate you putting me on. And hope everybody comes out to the signing in Queens and comes on out to Philadelphia. You guys going to be there?
We're going to actually be up here because we're a few hours away, but we got some Royal Rumble stuff going on.
They got planes and cars,
I know. But thank you so much, though. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, guys. I greatly appreciate it as well.
Wow, a lot coming from Bruce Prichard, former WWE creative member, former manager, former TNA head of creative there as well. Can't wait to find out a little bit more about what he and Eric Bischoff talk about on January 25th in Philadelphia, PA. Steve, were you surprised with some of this stuff that he had to say?
Yeah, I mean, he's a great guy to talk to. I hope we have him back on in the future. A lot of informative things we probably didn't really know about. But Jonathan, if you guys can't make it January 25th down to Philadelphia, I do kind of want to plug something that's happening January 25th that we're doing, and we hope all of you guys come out too, because it's a little bit different for us, and we're trying to take baby steps into the new year of new endeavors and all these other things that are happening with us. And Jonathan, January 25th is not only Bruce Prichard, Eric Bischoff, and Chris Jericho in Philadelphia for the Royal Rumble in this great debate, but January 25th in Poughkeepsie, New York, our home, we're going to be at the Mid-Hudson Civic Center. We're going to be at the Man Show. The WPDH presents the Man Show. We're bringing in Thea Trinidad, formerly known as Rosita, from TNA. She was tag team champion, women's tag team champion in TNA. We're going to have her at the Man Show. You guys have a little treat too, because not only do you get to meet and greet Thea Trinidad, FKA Rosita, you guys get a special bikini top photo op with her from 12 to 3. So that's a little treat for all you marks out there. This is the first time ever she will be doing that. So come out, support our show, because our show will be streaming live that day from the Mid-Hudson Civic Center. Also, it will be streaming live on WPDH.com. So if you guys want to sponsor us, you guys have a business or a company out there that wants a commercial to be heard in front of thousands of people up here in the tri-state area on WPDH.com, let us know. Shoot us an email. Head on over to anotherwrestlingpodcast.com. Email us at anotherwrestlingpodcast@gmail.com. Let us know that you want to be a sponsor. And hurry up, because all the sponsors, we will give them commercials on our show. And we will also take your logo and put it on the backdrop for our lovely guest, Thea Trinidad, during her photo shoot. So, hey, check us out January 25th. It's an all-day show. It's from 11 to 5, right before the Royal Rumble. Make sure you come on out to Poughkeepsie. Come over, say hi to us. If we're talking and doing our live show, come by, say hi. Don't be afraid. Don't be shy. A lot of you people out there are socially afraid to talk to people anymore. All you guys are too much into your iPhones and Facebook and Twitter that you guys don't know how to talk anymore. So please, Jonathan, you don't bite. I don't bite, right?
Well...
Okay, Jonathan bites, but you can still say hi to us.
Yeah, absolutely. And coming out, meet former Rosita. Come talk to us. We're going to be, who knows what's going to happen that day. We have a lot of stuff planned, but, it's live, so anything can happen.
That's right, guys. And more information on that, head over to our site. Head over to WPDH.com. You'll see about the Man Show. We'll be talking about it. But Jonathan, we just started this thing today. Well, not today. We started it, but we had a big exclusive today on our YouTube page, and that's how we're kind of going to channel some of these other interviews to make sure you guys get up-to-the-date interviews from all your favorite wrestlers out there. And Jonathan, you were a big part of today, what happened, so please tell the fans of what macho achievements you achieved today.
So, yeah, absolutely. Today was an amazing day. Macho Man Randy Savage going into the Hall of Fame. We wanted to find out a little more information than what we got last night on WWE. So we spent the extra time and we talked to none other than Lanny Poffo, Randy Macho Man Savage's brother, and we found out some information that probably all of you want to know about his going into the Hall of Fame, whether some caveats about it, also who decided that Hulk Hogan was going to be inducting Macho Man Randy Savage. So you should get on there, youtube.com/anotherwrestlingpod, Another Wrestling POD. We have a lot of exclusive interviews coming up, not to mention, not only that, we have Alex Porteau. You may remember him as the Pug in WWE. And we have a lot of videos, like Steve mentioned earlier, from the Hammerlock Awards on our YouTube page.
That's right. I mean, we're more than a website. We have a lot of media happening. We're more than a podcast, I should say. We talk, we videotape. I don't know. We write, we speak. We pretty much do it all. We are the Renaissance men of the media world, the social media universe. That's what we're doing, guys, to bring you up-to-date interviews, exclusive stuff that's happening, because we were just featured on FoxNews.com with our Macho Man Lanny Poffo interview that we had today. It's blowing up the internet right now, so check it out, guys. We're happening right now. We're all over. I guess the kids say that these days, right? We're happening. Is that cool?
I don't know about that, but
we're happening. Yeah. We're happening, guys. Yeah.
Hashtag happening.
The happening. Welcome to the happening. Welcome to the wasteland of happening. Anyway, whatever. But guys, yeah, a lot of big things happening. A lot of exclusive interviews. But next week also exclusively, as always, on our podcast, we're going to have another interview, Jonathan. And this interview, we may have to bring out the censor button because, well, she's from the South. She may curse like a trucker. But she's a great girl. She's a great woman. She's
from Minnesota. She's not from the South.
Well, anywhere an hour south of my house is pretty much the South. So
oh my God,
that's pretty much how I differentiate people from the South. So, but yeah, we have ODB coming on the show. Yeah,
you can not only sponsor us for the WPDH Man Show, but you can start the fund you can help donate to the fund I just started. It's the Get Steve Credo a Map Fund. And we'll be trying to help him not only with that, but getting him maybe a geography teacher. Yeah.
Hey, it's one of those things. Baby steps, guys. It's 2015. It's a new year. And I
have to say something real quick.
Okay.
It is the beginning of a new year. It's 2015. And if you were out there, Steve and I hate to break the news to everybody, we're both spoken for. And that I know that makes a lot of you sad out there, but you can find a date, Credo. This day and age, there's farmersonly.com, there is, christianmingle.com. There's all these specific dating sites out there, and somebody had the wherewithal to go out there and create their own dating website specific to pro wrestling fans.
That is right, Jonathan. It's I would say a revolutionary site for wrestling fans. Tagmeadate.com. Exactly how it sounds. Tagmeadate.com. Where wrestling fans can meet other wrestling fans, and I believe it's their tagline is that wrestling night just became date night, Jonathan. Isn't that right?
Yeah, and, like we said, it's very revolutionary. There's no one that's done this before. So you need to get out there, and if you were even thinking, I don't know if I really want to do this right now or whatever, the first month is free. There's no reason not to try this.
You can't be free, Jonathan. It's free.
Exactly.
I mean, us marks spend enough money on wrestling and autographs and pictures. How can you pass up a free chance to meet the wrestling fan of your dreams? I didn't know what to say, but I guess I said it. That sounds
good. That was great.
That's great. Yeah, guys, check them out. They're new and exciting. They're brand new. Tagmeadate.com. They got a Kickstarter campaign. They just have been released in Canada and overseas. So they're growing as well. So if you girls or guys out there are single and you want to find that special somebody who is also a wrestling fan, look no further than tagmeadate.com. Jonathan, too bad we can't go on the site. But it's not for everybody. It's for the single fans, the single marks out there, right?
Yeah, I mean, it is a shame that we can't be on there, but I'm glad that there is other wrestling fans out there that are taking interest to create these new and exciting things. If who would have thought that, a year ago we would have started this journey. So I'd like to thank all of our people that paved the way for us, but these are some of the cool things that are happening nowadays. But be sure to get on there and check it out.
We want to thank you for listening today.
We are an independent podcast.
Every week we create something for you to listen to, and it's absolutely free.
We are a wrestling podcast for wrestling fans because, after all, we are wrestling fans.
If you enjoyed the show today, here are some ways you can help us out.
First off, you can subscribe to our show on iTunes. While you're there, rate us and give us a good review. why not?
If you're looking for more AWP, then head on over to anotherwrestlingpodcast.com to find out more about upcoming guests and where we will be.
Be sure to like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter and Instagram, and buy an official AWP shirt from ProWrestlingTees.com/Another Wrestling Podcast.
We couldn't do the show without you.
So tune in next week for
Another Wrestling Podcast.